It's the playback.
Did what?
Well, when I go live on Facebook, the audio comes out of the speakers on the laptop that goes into my phone so that the people that are listening on my phone or on Facebook Live can hear the audio through my phone. They can hear me speak, but they can hear other people talk.
Did you drink a lot? No.
You catch my drift?
Yeah.
So when somebody else is speaking, then their audio goes to my phone. So I had it going through the laptop speakers so that my phone would catch
the
it.
other pack.
But it was also recording on whatever.
Oh, I've got it. Sorry. It's a nice start to our live episode. This time on the episode, I spray my girlfriend with bug spray. Let's hope it kills the damn wasp. Here, drink some of this. It'll treat you well.
I'm ready to do some kind of intro here.
You smell like Updog.
Next episode.
On this episode of Mercury's Cast, we're here with Travis Pastrana.
No, it's not the Summer Games.
Wrong Travis.
It's not the Extreme Games or whatever it's called. X Games.
All right. More importantly, Travis smells like Updog.
I don't know what that is. Okay. All right.
Not even going to ask.
I think me saying that I don't know what it smells like is kind of an indication that I am asking of what it does smell like.
So you should ask.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to Mercury's Cast. It's been a little bit. We've taken a short break. Some things are going on. That's what life is all about. Life's about changes and ups and downs. And there's been a bunch of downs going down over here, if you know what I mean, down here in Southern California down.
And boxes of chocolates. Don't forget, life is about boxes of chocolates.
Hey, you weren't rang in yet, all right, Mr. Co-hoster. Piece of. Oh, and let's welcome back to the show, Alexander. Anyone that's listened during December or January, God bless your heart. We're gonna have some more content coming out, and I appreciate anybody that has downloaded France and all these other. There was one download in Ireland, and God bless your heart. And Alexander, welcome back to the show. How are you feeling on this lovely Sunday evening?
Oh, it is a beautiful one. It is brisk. It is cool. It is calm. I'm doing okay. I'd also like to shout out to our October listeners. That was a dry month.
Yeah, but for it being not too podcast worthy, there was downloads, and it's kind of I don't want to get too much into the analytics of the podcast, talk about the podcast of the podcast and stuff like that. But any goddamn who, Alex, what's going on new with you? Tell me something beautiful.
Let's see. Yeah, I got nothing.
All right. Well, we could start right off into. All right. So, as much as I'll divulge about my personal life, I've been in and out of my regular home again, and you know how marriages go. 50% of them fail, and sometimes it looks like it's gonna fail. Sometimes it looks like it's gonna be really good, and we got some like makeup sex going on, and that's always exciting. I feel like I'm falling in love all over again every 2 weeks. But such is life, and maybe this will be the rest of it. The rest of it as it goes. Love-hate relationship. I think we need some professional help, and that's kind of been what's the.
You need some professional help.
Oh, I've needed that for a long time. I'm not going to argue with you on that there. But any damn who.
Things in my life are going great.
Yeah, I heard you're moving.
Yes, I am moving to the Great Ozarks.
You're not going to the fucking Ozarks.
I think Arkansas is in the Ozarks, is it not?
Have you watched that show?
No, I don't even know what show you're referencing. If
Oh,
that's
come
any
on.
indicator.
Just fucking stop it. You know what show that is, right?
No.
Ozarks. Yes, you do.
Is it a show about the mountains? They're beautiful.
I think that's the best show that is out right now is the Ozarks. I'm super excited for season 2 of it.
I was watching one this afternoon. It's some Netflix original. Something carbon, something. I don't know. It's kind of like it reminds me of like The Seventh Day. Was it The Seventh Day or Sixth Day? The movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the '90s where they made a clone of him.
Unfamiliar.
Anyways, basically,
damn.
great show. If you can figure out what I'm talking about, leave it in the comments below.
All right. And so you're moving and all that's beautiful and great. Is your girlfriend going with you?
Not at the moment.
Oh.
That is a good old TBD. So that will be determined. It's still not set in stone what's happening. It's kind of one of those things where you feel as you go, you know?
Well, tell me more.
Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more.
You're being so cryptic like Bitcoin.
Speaking of Bitcoin, it's crashing. Buy.
Well, that's a good time to buy then because
ain't no lie, baby.
They're gonna do
buy.
I have some inside info on the cryptocurrency, and they're gonna do. I forget what the terminology is, but they're gonna make it readily available.
A hard fork.
Soon, they're gonna make it readily available to be able to distribute on your phone or something. God, I shouldn't even be talking about it.
Oh. No, there's some stuff that we can talk about on that. There are at least 2 coins I know of that are popping into the market that are mineable on the phone. Yes. I think one's called Dragon coins, and there's another one, but they're I can't remember what it is. They don't use processing power; they use transaction. Well, I mean, all of them use transactions, but they use puzzles basically to mine the currency. So it's
I mean, between the two of us, we're going to rub our brains together and get one thought out eventually.
What, a coin? Or
I don't know.
Something to talk about.
Mentally jerk each other off. Whoa, things just got weird. It's all your fault.
We're working on that technology. We're working on it.
Yeah.
Interesting in the news, Elon Musk launches a Tesla into outer space. What do we have to say about that?
Well, I personally, when I saw those 2 rockets land simultaneously, and I know that the 3rd rocket didn't go as planned, and neither did the projection of the Tesla. I think it's going to miss Mars now, but to me, that was just like something beautiful. That's what you call an innovation. That's not an improvement in technology. I think that's what you would call an innovation.
I would call it an interesting stunt, but I've been watching the SpaceX and their rocket launches for a while now. I was actually just the other day watching their first, I know it's an old video, but I was watching their first successful water platform, water drone landing. I think people don't realize that's the first time that's ever been done. A rocket launched into space and then landed, like the rocket itself landing, the boosters landing themselves. Usually they just let them fall to Earth. If it's lucky, they'll parachute it down. But
yeah, somewhere in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, when we were doing when we were still doing the shuttle launches, and they were attaching those giant, you know, boosters to it. That big orangish brown booster. They don't realize that that thing just kind of plummeted down to Earth. Meanwhile, a private company launched a rocket into space, pulled a maneuver, turned the rocket around, and landed it where it started. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and here's where some of the criticism starts coming in, and I don't agree with it because I think Elon Musk is, for the most part, and entirely a good thing. But people say, "Oh, he's not a private company because he's taking government contracts and he's taking government money." But I mean, you ain't seen NASA do anything like what he's been able to pull off in a lot of instances.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not a big fan of all the government money that goes into his programs, but I also acknowledge that he's also had to fight a lot of government restrictions and various laws and codes and taxes that he could have invested into his own business. So the way I see it, maybe he's not a net taxpayer, so to speak, in that he's receiving more from the government than he's giving. But we can't say exactly how much he would have been able to do if he didn't have the regulatory commissions in place keeping him from doing everything he wants to do. So there's no saying that if his companies weren't so heavily regulated and taxed, there's no saying what he could have done without the government money.
Which he might have done some stuff along the same lines, but it's like,
regardless, he's much more efficient with that government money than NASA ever was.
yes,
His company is
I would
pulling
agree with
off
that.
technological advances that the government-run organizations never did.
And even from like the libertarian standpoint, where the government fucks everything up and the private sector tends to make things better, I kind of agree with that. And it's just weird to me that other smart people that I respect, i.e. Sean Coca and Gary Boyd, think that it's a bad thing. And I just I don't, it's I have my own brain and can form my own thoughts. So
I'm somewhere
he's not
in between.
he's not
I'm
sucking
somewhere
off the
in.
government teat. He is an innovator of technology. If you look at what he did for
He is, but he
Australia,
isn't. He is, but he isn't. I'm somewhere in that gray area between, like where Sean is, and I'm sure you know that I respect the hell out of both you and Mr. Coca.
correct.
I think that both of you come up with some really brilliant stuff,
Not
but
me.
I fall in that
I
gray
just
area
threw it out of my
between, and
face. That's all I do.
I do criticize Elon Musk for taking from the government what he takes and some of his stunts. I thought the flamethrowers were stupid. I still think they're stupid. They're just overglorified kitchen torches.
If someone would give you one for free, you would definitely take it, and you'd take it out to
I'd
parties
take
and
it.
shit.
Yeah, but I would not pay $500 for one. I wouldn't even pay $100 for one.
Okay, fair enough.
I might pay $20-$30 for one just as a gag. Ha ha! I bought a flamethrower. But as far as Elon's concerned, I guess I'll weigh in on it. I think he's done more with the government money than the government would do with the government money. That does not excuse him for taking the money. I am not a huge fan of the government propping up the private sector with their money either. As far as I'm concerned, they're using funds that were extorted from the people to pay for companies. I don't support corporate welfare in any way, shape, or form. So I'm with Coca on that. Now, his saving grace is that, once again, he has done more with that money than I could ever see the government doing with it. If it didn't go to his company, it probably would have gone to some bureaucrat's pocket and, created another government dynasty, another royal family, another Clinton or Bush.
Well, I mean, you don't know that for certain. And it's I
And we
think
do,
that
and
money
we don't
that money
and we
spent
don't
is better
know.
than some other government program that could have possibly been implemented.
I
I mean, there's a lot
I just
of
but
ways
I
that the
know
government blow money.
I I can make inferences and I can take some guesses and I can look at how other government run programs have operated and worked and how inefficient they tend to be. Some work. They do. I'll give them that, but a majority of them don't.
Well, do you have a idea on what the government could spend the money on rather than maybe these social programs, or say let's give it to Elon Musk? I mean, do
As
you have
far as
a
the government spending
innovative?
any money, I think the only thing I do support the government spending money on is social programs.
Oh dear Lord!
No, the only reason being is it's money extorted from the people. It should go back to the people.
I
don't
guess
think they should
I could see that
I don't think they
argument.
should take the money in the first place, but if they're going to spend it on something, it should be the people that have paid it. Now, I also think that all rich people should be eligible for said social programs as well if they have to be in place, because let's face it, rich people pay for most of those
No,
social
I
programs.
definitely agree with that because I fall into a category where I don't qualify for free healthcare. At least I didn't under Obama. Now that there's the mandatory thing is gone. Mandatory. Why is that word escaping me? Anyways, I didn't like.
I can't wait till next
That's sort
year's
of,
taxes.
okay, we can talk about that later. The mandatory thing, which I never even followed. Like I still don't have health insurance, but for me I didn't qualify for these programs, and I agree with you. If you're going to make it eligible for somebody with a certain amount of income, then why can't Elon Musk sign up for the same health care? Or why can't I? Because
he's paying for it too.
I make too much
Yeah,
money to fall into that certain category. So, and I'm barely like above the threshold of not qualifying for free health care, which I can't even, I mean, I really can't even afford it anyways. Mandatory mandate? No, what the fuck is it? So,
mandatory
if you're going to make it free for one, make it free for all, and you'll be able to keep your doctor. But anyways, the one social program that I do agree with was the paid family leave, and the super fiscal conservatives disagree with it, but I tend to be on board with that because I used it and I had a great time hanging out with my son for 6 weeks. And the maternity leave, it's like so the super ultra conservatives will be like, well, how did you do it before? And we don't need this. But I think that talking about money going back to the taxpayers, I think that is a good idea for the that idea that the money is going back to the people that are paying the taxes.
I just think in general, I'm against most of this stuff in theory. Like, theoretically, I'd like to get rid of all of it because theoretically, I'd like people not to pay any taxes.
Okay, I want to put a flag mark there, and we're going to talk about that. But go ahead.
But I think that as long as people like you and I are paying into these programs, we should be eligible to receive them as well. I think it's unfair that the people who pay the most into them don't get a chance to. And I think if the really liberal folks out there really want people to get on board with these programs, that'd be a step in the right direction. If we're going to take 30% of your income every year, you should at least get some of the benefit of it. Cut some of your expenses. And, most of the rich people would opt out of it. They'd opt to have their own, higher quality things. But I think they should at least have the option.
Well, poor people don't pay taxes. I mean,
well, yeah. I think just this year I did the math. It was just this year that I finally made it into the, and that, mind you, this is all based on speculative, cost of schooling, education, all that, and then crunching some numbers. Just this year I made it into the net taxpayer bracket. Meaning sweet. I've finally paid my debt to society.
which
Most
which means what, by the way? And so
it just means that I've done the numbers to equate.
I want to draw a clear line. Are you one of those taxation is theft people?
Definitely.
Okay, and not that I disagree with that, but I've had a lot of thought on this, and our buddy Joshua Ferguson is one of those people. So I've done some thinking on it, and so there's got to be somewhere the money comes from to run certain parts of the government and or certain parts of social programs that I feel are necessary. You can't. I mean, you can't just get rid of government completely. And hold on. You can't just get rid of the IRS completely. It would be a social economic collapse. You can't just remove taxes from our current situation because that's not going to work.
Yes, you can.
What up?
Well, howdy.
What up? All right, Sean, let me catch you up real quick. We're on the topic of taxation is theft, and I am not saying that is not true, but what I am saying is that our current structure, if you got rid of the IRS, the economics of it would collapse, and there's certain things in line, like certain government programs, certain government entities that are run that rely on this. I think that it would be a bad thing to get rid of the IRS and taxes.
I'm talking. Well, I was going to get to that, so I'm going to address what Travis said really quick, and feel free to call me out if you think I'm wrong. 1, stop paying politicians. If you want to run for politics, be able to support yourself on your own merit. Most politicians have their own businesses. Pay your fucking self.
Well, there's issues with that.
So you got to have a full-time job and then also be a politician. I mean,
well, most politicians don't. Most politicians don't treat it like a full-time job. Let's say state government decides to pay their employees. Federal government, on the other hand, no, I don't think so. The federal government has.
You think the president should
government
have his own job? You think the president should be running a company at the same time?
Well, most presidents already have a wealthy estate to begin with, do they not?
Now you're talking exactly what the criticism of Trump is while having companies that are running while he's being president. People think that he's doing the presidency for profit is a big criticism.
Well, let's just say this. Okay. President gets paid federal minimum wage. Let's see how quick that goes up.
Well, no, I'm not saying you're wrong, but Trump could do that.
But
he essentially is doing that.
He could. Obama could have done that as well.
You could use the power of presidency.
Well.
It would have been a bigger stretch for Obama.
Okay, let's just do this the most fair way I can think of. Let's say politicians get paid on wages that are voted upon by taxpayers themselves. Put it to popular vote. How much do politicians get paid? How much does this politician get paid for their job? How much do you value them?
I agree. They're paid too much. They are paid too much.
Don't let them vote on their own, though. If you take a government job, you lose.
They're getting extensions, and their pensions are rising, and especially on the local politic level.
To address revenue, most utility companies in the United States are government-mandated monopolies. The government gets a cut of what utility companies bring in. If you don't want to privatize utilities, there's one source of revenue. Do a flat tax on purchases. The more someone spends, the more they pay in taxes. That'll build your roads. That if you're going to yell my roads and say that roads can't be built with government, and I'm just going inside of your constraints of how can you operate a government without an income tax. Set up a
specifically,
10% flat rate.
We're talking about income tax then. We're not talking about corporate tax. We're not talking about
Alexander,
tax.
we only got Sean for a short period of time, so let's let him do talking while we got him.
I'm listening. I just want to know what we're talking about. We're talking about income tax. We're talking about theft. Income tax is theft. There's not really any way getting around it. A mandatory income tax.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, and while I may agree with you, I'm saying that the way that the current structure is set up right now, if you were just to remove all that shit, then it would be a catastrophe.
No, how much of federal government revenue comes from income tax?
I don't know. I'm not at
liberty. Less than a third.
And how many constant, and this is a question for you, Travis, a little bit of a quiz on what you know about government. How much or how many jobs does the federal government have?
The most jobs out of every fucking...
Counting the military?
No, it's only you can
military?
counting the military. You've only got 2 jobs that the federal government is constitutionally told to do.
I thought you meant how many jobs does the federal government, like how many people does it employ?
No, the federal government's only purpose is to maintain sovereignty. Which
it's the biggest company. It's the biggest company that's in America.
The federal government is just there to keep our borders secure, like essentially.
The DMV and all
that's not federal. That's state.
The federal's job is essentially to
keep America safe from outside threats
and to keep the states from fighting with each other.
There you go. It's 2 jobs.
That's what it's supposed to be, but it's branched off into doing a whole bunch of other.
Okay, but you don't think individual states? You don't think the individual states could pick up that slack?
They've used the Interstate Commerce Clause, which is to keep the states from fighting with each other, to just do whatever they want.
If you remove that leverage and you remove income taxes, and you start doing things more on a state and local level, you start seeing less and less need for the federal government. Wow, that's a loud ass muffler. Someone's got a big dick.
Well, who pays the CIA? Who pays the FBI? Who pays the Homeland Security? Which is all these organizations that we need.
Well, no one said we need the FBI. We need the CIA and Homeland Security theoretically, and that's for border security and the government.
And there's a bunch of. Granted, there are some 3-letter organizations that we probably don't need, but they're funded that way too. And who knows what would happen if the people that say that taxation is theft and we need to remove the IRS. I think there's bigger problems that would happen. There's bigger problems that would collapse. I don't think
it would collapse
because they would have to cut back spending.
I mean, we don't know.
It's probably impossible.
I don't think it would collapse. I think what would happen is you'd see a rat race for the non-essentials to find essential jobs, but you basically see a bunch of redundancy. That's it.
And the benefit would be the Travis, how much do you think the government overspends in a percentage of the government's budget? How much of it do you think
probably
could be cut out?
70%.
So 70%.
Yes, well, but 30% is vital. That is the glue. That
income taxes make up less than 30% of federal revenue. So if they cut off income taxes, they should be able to cut as much spending to make sense. Like, income taxes don't even cover like entitlement programs.
What do you mean? Explain entitlement programs.
There's only two. Well, there's only 2 income taxes that do, and that's going to be. Although one's not technically an entitlement program, it's been kind of turned into one. Social Security and state and federal state disability. Those are your 2 entitlements that come out of your taxes. Aside from that, the actual federal income tax that you pay, none of it actually goes to these entitlement programs.
Who's going to pay for the handicapped? Who's going to pay for the vets? Who's going to pay for the people that are too sick to pay for themselves?
Well, income tax doesn't even pay for that stuff now.
How do you know that?
Because
budgets.
Okay, if the federal government spends $100 billion, they spend a lot more than that. But let's say they spend $100 billion in a year. 30% of that came from income tax. So where did the other $70 billion come from?
The general fund, which is funded by other taxes, I believe.
It's funded by tariffs and corporate taxes and which essentially comes down to sales tax.
You're focusing on income tax. You're focusing on income taxes here. Okay, yes. I agree that income taxes should be drastically lowered, but the idea that we can just get rid of the IRS and everything's going to be fine is something that I'm struggling with.
The IRS does corporate tax and income tax. Tariffs and other shit are collected by other agencies. They're not collected by the IRS.
I would honestly be intrigued to find out how much of the IRS's yearly budget is devoted to employees processing taxes on citizens, so income tax for people.
I would say it probably takes 10% of what they collect to even collect it. So, right there, you're in a fucking inefficient situation.
Right. I'm not saying that the system is not broken, but
so imagine how much money they would save. Imagine how much money they would save by getting rid of federal income tax. We have to take that into consideration as well. How many fewer employees they'd need. They wouldn't need to enforce their taxation. They wouldn't have all of these programs, and they wouldn't be funneling a ton of money every year into TurboTax and H&R Block to offer them incentives for e-filing. They wouldn't have to maintain an e-file database. Companies would then not need to maintain a W-2 database to track people's income. How much money goes into the infrastructure every year just to track how much everyone's earning to keep them paying?
Right.
Well, then,
all right. So
how many people who dropped out of high school would lose their part-time job working at H&R Block?
Probably not that many.
All right, so
I thought it was completely.
So there's an argument to be made that maybe we can get rid of the federal tax and just do it on a state level, and it could be less. But then also, what's that program when you turn 55, 65, and then you're eligible?
Security.
So do you guys want to get rid of that too, or?
I personally do. I want to pay out the people that have already paid in. I think that the federal government should pay back every dime that people have paid into it and call it quits for that.
Well, it seems like it's an unfair playing level because somebody that makes $300,000 a year compared to somebody that makes $40,000 a year, and then once you turn that age limit, then you're all just you're all available to the same amount of money or revenue or whatever. Is that the way it works? I don't know. I'm not 65, so when you turn 65,
not quite. You get a percentage of what's paid in back.
I know, but I think there's a cap on it too.
There is a cap on it, but my issue with it is that people, particularly in my generation, even your generation, you're not going to see as much generation?
As. No, he's 10 years younger than us.
Oh yeah.
So
you're the member of the worst generation ever.
Yeah, I'm not going to see shit.
Sorry.
Well, I'm not going to see shit that I pay.
Hold on, let's not go there. Let's stay focused here.
Don't get me started on my generation.
He kept walking. He didn't.
Go ahead.
But I'm not going to see shit. I was looking at the projections. I'm going to see maybe 4% of what I pay in.
I whenever I'm not working a payroll job, I don't even pay in. I don't even bother. I just opt out of it. I went fucking 10 years almost without paying any Social Security.
Unfortunately, for my generation, your generation's parents and their parents popped out way too many kids.
Well, yeah. The thing is, the whole system breaks down as soon as the next generation isn't as big.
And it's funny to me.
You guys both disagree with Social Security. You guys both disagree with Social Security.
Well, it's a Ponzi
Definitely.
scheme. That's what it is.
It's a Ponzi scheme. Hey, I didn't even hear you say it the first time because your audio cut out. So we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah.
It's a Ponzi scheme.
You know what? Get a room. I mean, you guys make good arguments towards my good argument and Sean's one of these people that he thinks that everything's fear mongering and there's nothing to worry about. And I think, Alex, you're kind of along the same lines, but
it's not that there's nothing to worry about, but I'm not gonna. I refuse to be put in a corner and made to be scared. So I will do whatever they want me to do. Fuck that. I'm capable of taking care of myself.
So let me ask you both a question. There is nothing that the government can do with our taxes that does us any good. And we can just get rid of the IRS right now and everything would be fine. Society would go on just as...
not the federal government. Not the federal government.
Well, who pays the senators and the congressmen and the fucking... the... whatever's the...
Look into John McCain's eyes and tell me that's a good person. Tell me that's someone you want to have power.
When's the last time any of my senators living in California did anything I agreed with?
Yeah.
That dude put out the memo.
When is the last time?
No, they didn't. They
Look
voted
at even
against
Orange. Let's. I'll even bring Coca into this one, because when's the last time any of the local government in Orange County did anything representative of,
well, I don't
the
live in Orange County.
taxpayers, the
I live in
populace.
LA County, which is even worse.
You're on the border.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
right on the border.
I know,
LA
but
County is a
I don't live
shithole.
in Orange County. I live in LA County, and they never do anything I agree with. LA County is fucking retarded.
I live right near the state capitol, and I can tell you, there's nothing these people do that makes me happy.
Yeah, it's all a big fucking joke.
Well, I'm glad all of our spirits are uplifted now.
I really feel uplifted myself.
That's why
I'm glad I had this opportunity.
Everyone's experience.
No, you joined in at the right time. I get that there are too many taxes and that there's something that we can do about it, but the whole thing is that we can just get rid of the IRS. Then everything will go on just as planned. Is I think that's a day. But first of all, it's never going to happen. So we can theorize and we can wax intellectual on it all day long, but it's never going to fucking happen.
You're probably right.
I mean, the whole system's run on it. I mean, the only thing that we can do is to
we'll never live in a completely 100% slave-free world either. But it doesn't make slavery okay.
True.
Okay, we can keep talking about it.
No, I'm just saying, like, the IRS or some form of the IRS will probably never go away, and there will probably always be income taxes. We've opened that fucking box, and we can't close it again. But that doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't mean we should just be like, can't do anything about that. So let's not talk about it and pretend like it's all right.
No, that's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing is we're talking about it. And I'm very fiscally conservative. I want to cut taxes, cut spending. We're never going to get out of this $20 trillion hole that we're in unless people like us talk about it and we put pressure on the forces that be.
I just want you to take this in mind, Travis, is like take this to your heart deeply. I'd like to cut all of them. Just all of them. Get rid of every one of them.
Ron Paul said it perfectly when he said, when I mean tax reform, I mean get rid of all of it and replace it with nothing.
Well, I'm not even talking taxes. I mean on a federal, state, and local level, I'd like it dissolved. But
so you're advocating for like hundreds of thousands of people to lose their jobs immediately.
Yep.
And then once that comes into the workforce,
learn to be useful. Let's hope they got skills along the way.
Principle standpoint, from a principle.
Yeah, that's just theory, of course.
I could go along with that. I recognize that it is completely and totally impractical and it's never going to happen. But
exactly, I do as well.
But you would advocate for hundreds of thousands of people to just lose their jobs immediately that have children that have.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this: when slavery was still legal in the U.S. and the idea of abolishing it was going to happen, you're advocating for hundreds of thousands of plantation owners to lose their livelihood.
No, not hundreds of thousands.
Well, not only that, but there were actually people that said, "Well, if we free the slaves, what will they do? They won't have any purpose in life, and they'll hate life."
You want to know what's funny? Can I sidestep here for a little bit? And I read something about Bakersfield that some of those slaves that got freed, and you know what they were doing, and they were picking cotton. Well, they came to Bakersfield, and guess what Bakersfield exports a lot of? And guess what they ended up doing? But they were getting a living wage. I mean, it's not funny, but I just thought it was the irony of it was kind of like was interesting.
The point I'm making is, if those people lose their jobs were based on oppression and acting as leeches to society. All they're doing is siphoning off the fruits of people's labor and their excuse is that, well, we're doing it for your own good. We're doing it to maintain order and to ensure stability, but they don't even do a very good job of that, and they're oppressing people. So in my opinion, I don't see their jobs as being legitimate. If your job is to oppress people, you shouldn't have a job. Learn to be useful.
And wait, who are you talking about here?
Open up a fucking lemonade stand. Every one of those people that you said would lose their job if we just dissolved everything. Open a lemonade stand. Open millions of lemonade stands.
There's more stuff that go on behind the scenes that we live in America, and stuff that just comes easy to us. That stuff I can't probably put my finger on right now, and you're overlooking that just because it's
no. I'm not overlooking it. I am oversimplifying it because we run a half-hourly to hourly podcast, and to get into this sort of philosophy takes books.
No, we're doing it right now. I mean, I just think that there would be some.
It's already it's already been stated. It's impractical. I'm talking on a philosophical standpoint. I'm just talking my philosophy.
If it was designed that way, and then if the taxes never increased like they did, and we never got out of control, I'm totally in favor of that. I'm just saying that what's going on right now is something that we can't just yank that out of the system of what is going on, because it could have super everlasting consequences that we can't foresee.
So
that's what I'm saying.
Here's my proposition, and I might get some agreement. Then we work. We work as a collective, so to speak, to push change.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we're the most divided right now than we've ever been in American history. And you think that people are going to try and work together?
Find commonalities.
We actually had a
find
civil war.
Commonalities.
That was more divided than we are now. Like
that was slightly more divided.
We're having a political civil war right now, and we might be more divided than that.
Yeah, dude, it's not even. We're not even. This isn't even the most divided we've been in the last 100 years. That's just all hyperbolic nonsense.
Now, we might have a more childish fucking anti-intellectual but think they're intellectual idiots than we've ever had. That is certainly true.
And
what's beautiful about that?
That's primarily Alex's generation's fault. No offense, Alex, but
no, it's I would actually, I'm going to counter that with that is both of our generation's fault, because I see idiots on the left and right, and your generation makes up a bunch of the idiots on the left and the right. The liberals your age are the dumbest. At least
some of them are balanced.
The conservatives my age are the dumbest.
Whoa.
There's not very many of them.
I've talked to many. There are some diamonds in the rough, but a majority of the conservatives my age are idiots, and a majority of the liberals your age are idiots.
Yeah, dude. I think most liberals are idiots. So
I do too.
It doesn't really matter what age.
That's a gross generalization, if you ask me.
It is a horribly gross generalization, but where I draw that is the liberals my age feel justified to be. They're pissed off at a system that has let them down, that has, they were born into a really unfortunate circumstance, and it's often mocked and derided by your generation, but they were born into an economic collapse. This is something that a lot of people your age don't take into consideration, which is
the market corrected itself. It's not like it was the Depression or anything where people were starving.
Economically, though, it was similar. And here's my issue. I can remember we went to war when I was about 7 years old. We're still involved in the same conflicts. So you got to keep in mind, my generation is extremely jaded.
That conflict actually started when we were 7 years old, and it's still been going on. We just took a break. I mean, we were in.
Well, you had a break, though. You had a break. We still haven't had our break. So my generation is the 9/11 generation. We were children when those towers fell, And a lot of them are, I'll give it to you. I've met a lot of idiots, but I've also met a lot of people on the left and the right that have very valid reasons for justifying their beliefs. It's just they're not the right reasons, if that makes sense at all. Like,
no, but their beliefs suck. These fucking neo-Marxist nonsense.
Trust me, it's not easy being an anarcho-capitalist in my generation. Capitalism gets a really nasty reaction from most people my age.
The way I see it, and you know, I only have my point of view. I don't have anyone else's point of view to look out from, so I only have my point of view. But the way I see it is, you know, my parents are baby boomers. My parents were born in the 40s. They're a bit older.
Your parents are the ones that in their 20s they could buy a house.
Alex, don't do it. Let them talk.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, my parents are a bit older than most people my age's parents, you know? Like, all my friends, their parents are consistently 10, 15 years younger than my parents. But
yeah.
But from what I see is, like, you know, it started in our generation, but by time you were playing Little League, there was a lot of, like, we're not keeping score kind of shit. I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying by the time kids you were, like, your age were playing Little League, there was too much of, we're not keeping score and we're going to keep this friendly and life needs to be fair and blah, blah, blah. And really, that's Generation X's fault because your parents are Generation X, I presume.
My parents are 50, so I don't know where they fall.
They would be on the, yeah, I guess that's, they're not baby boomers.
And for just for a little bit of clarity, I'm 24. It was about when I was in high school that they stopped keeping score.
Yeah.
So you're really talking about the generation that came right after me, the ones that grew up with smartphones.
I mean, we can
get into the semantics
of where you draw generation lines.
I draw it at the year 2000. People born after 2000, so now they're turning 18. Those are the ones that grew up without scorecards.
So so what's the difference between our
I was in competitive. I was
1990.
Not much, not very much actually. The only difference is we were raised with. I'm in that really nasty gray area because I had the World Book Encyclopedia at my house. I remember what it's like to look through a paper encyclopedia. You know.
Yeah, we could never afford that shit, but.
That was our prized possession. Let's put it that way. I grew up with computers, but they were running Windows 98.
I remember when the new Windows came. Sean, I remember when the new Windows came out, and then your dad was like, "I paid $100 for a fucking cloud because the only thing that was different, like the start screen had a cloud on it, and it wasn't too much different." I remember your dad being like.
I paid
$100 for a fucking cloud.
I've got an Intellivision. I've got a Trash 80, TRS 80, back when Radio Shack was still Tandy Radio Shack.
Oh yeah, do you have a VCR?
But you have those for like hobby purposes, right?
I inherited a few. My family. Yeah. See, I don't fit well because I was more tech inclined than most people. My grandpa, who's he got in the military right as we finished World War II. He was a computer salesman. He met Steve Jobs when he had hair.
Yeah.
We were a very tech savvy family before tech savvy was affordable to the public.
But you're kind of in that area. If your family's from where you live, you're kind of near the epicenter of it. I mean, my dad had Ataris, like when Atari made computers, not game systems.
But
he
it's
never
really
bought an Apple. But
this is the biggest issue with your generation is there are these broad generalizations thrown around about people my age, when it's really people my age will even tell you it ain't us. You're looking at the people.
Wait, hold on.
That are your kids. It's your kids.
This is the issue with your generalization, and then you said generation than broad generalization, which you just did the exact same thing that you're saying.
Okay.
No, what I'm saying though is the people my age weren't there.
But I'm just saying,
we aren't the ones.
You could have.
We had scorecards
a little differently there, buddy.
We had. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I just feel like me and Travis grew up in the tail end of the world where no one gave a fuck if you're a victim, and you were told,
yeah,
okay, life's not fair. Fucking move on. Put your boots on. Go to work. And do what you need to do.
And
where I feel very shortly after, like, you know, I feel like there's a generation gap with me and just the people that are 2 or 3 years younger than me, because it was very shortly after that it became, oh, well, you know, it's not your fault and you shouldn't have to accept it and blah, blah, blah. And then we get into we start into this fucking Marxism and this intersectionality.
Yeah.
And blah, 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 blah. I
definitely feel for that a lot, but the issue, where that comes from isn't so much the whole, and I'll just give you my breakdown of it because I've seen a lot of it firsthand, and I've got a lot of, people that I was friends with that really fall into this shit. A lot of it is because
Ground Zero too. I'm pretty close to it.
Well, I'm from Cincinnati, which is also definitely Ground Zero. But people my age, my dad is a master carpenter. My mom is a really good carpenter. These are people who, when growing up, my mom worked 40, 50 hours a week trying to support us kids. I was raised by hardworking people. That work ethic came down. We weren't handed anything. I was told that if you're not going to work hard, you're not going to have anything. I was in competitive sports. Hey, I was a star shooter in high school. First place at a few Olympic rifle tournaments. Hey-o.
Well, that's why I was saying I'm not talking about you personally. I'm
but
talking about your generation.
There are a lot of people even in my generation, though, there's a lot of people like me. The generation after, kind of iffy. I mean, there's always the exceptions, but that mentality, that neo-Marxism you find is because it's going to be hard. It's hard to explain, but it's like, I feel like people your age have this perspective of younger people as though we've never worked for anything. I've worked with people my age in skilled trades.
I have friends that fall halfway between me and you that work their ass off. Like it's not that no one's working.
But the issue is, like, if I got into the workforce in the 90s, there was money. God, there was money. But right now, as minimum wage has gone up, that first rung to the ladder, that barrier to entry to better paying work, livable work, has gotten higher and higher. There aren't any, entry level positions for jobs that will actually make you money. You have to either lie, work your ass off double time, or just take a job
are not designed for a living wage.
I know, but our generation, like people me and Travis's age, are affected by that too. Like,
you definitely are.
The difference is who we blame. I feel like, and I'm not talking
I don't
about
blame
me personally, anyone. You personally. I'm talking about as a whole where the finger is being pointed. You get what I'm saying? Like,
it's Trump's fault. It's definitely Trump's fault.
People who are in college right now are being taught by their college professors that it's not their fault and that they should just be unhappy with it, and that the system needs to be overthrown because of it.
Which brings me to my conclusion is that mindset isn't inherently my generation's fault so much as not quite your parents' fault. I'm not sure how old Travis's parents are.
My parents are too old. Travis's dad is nearly as old as my parents. His
people right now,
we both grew up with older parents. My parents was in their 20s. Me and Sean's parents were in their 40s when we were kids when we met.
People that are 60 right now are to blame.
Born.
People that are 60 are to blame, and they're the ones that throw a lot of blame too.
I don't know, but I don't know about that.
It's all the hippies, the flower childs or flower children that did this.
There's certainly that, but I blame the media for one. I mean, the media is the one that perpetuates this crazy ideology of. I mean, they used to be the news, but now they're just the media. You don't get news from the media anymore.
When we were in college, if we asked for a safe space, we would have been laughed out of the fucking room.
And now, I can't afford college.
Well, I could have afforded. My parents would have paid for me to go to a university, but I didn't go. I just went to
my parents college. Didn't have any money.
Yeah.
Well, if you were a female,
had money because
Native
my dad worked his ass off.
Yeah,
my dad worked 70-hour weeks. That's why we had anything.
Yeah, my dad's a crazy hard worker as well. But like the generations of my family were perfectly timed to where each and every generation of my family has been during an economic slump in America. My grandpa was raised during the Great Depression.
Okay. It's safe to say
my mom, my aunts, my uncles.
None of us, including my parents, none of us have ever lived off of a government program or came from people that didn't work hard before us.
Not true. Not true on my end. Food stamps are a government program, and I can say that at certain points in all of our lives, we've been reduced to that.
So where does the money from food stamps come from there then, Alexander?
For me, it was taken from my checks against my will.
No, not beforehand. Maybe afterwards.
Everyone in my family has worked hard, and any of them that have resorted to food stamps have paid their fair share in.
If you got rid of the IRS and income tax, maybe even corporate tax, are people not? Do you want to remove food stamps for people?
Food stamps are a state-run program, and they're funded via corporate taxes.
Okay.
State income taxes do not pay for even 3% of food stamps. I disagree with food stamps. I disagree with food stamps because I think if I had the $5,000 over the past 4 months that they took out of my paychecks, I would have never needed to ever resort to aid for eating.
No, I agree that they take too much.
If I've been able to save all that money,
all of it. Hold on.
Hey guys, I gotta cut it out. So
okay,
you guys have fun.
Hold on, Sean. I just want to say that that 1 year ago, us three did a podcast together. It was 1 year to the day that us three did a podcast. I thought that was pretty heartwarmingly special.
Did we?
Yes, it's on my Facebook memories. That's how I know about it.
Wow. I've actually got something interesting for that. I've got something interesting for you then.
Oh, yeah? Don't say the word literally. Don't you fucking do it.
I literally was amazed by this.
I think we should cut it off soon, but let's go.
Yeah,
another 10, 15, 20 or whatever.
Let's do a story time and a tech talk all in one.
Okay.
This one's going to be for the nerds out there. Capcom released their fastest selling game in history a week ago.
Famously does Street Fighter, right?
Yeah. They released Monster Hunter Worlds over the past week or two.
Oh, God.
Actually, I think they released it at the end of last month, and it is outselling PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds at the moment.
Whoa.
Fun factoid, though. A very good friend of mine, someone that someday I'd like to have on the show because I feel like he'd be amazing for this. He's like me, but a lot nicer.
Okay. We can deal with that.
I was going to the store.
Get with that.
I was going to the store to buy myself a second-hand Xbox 360. It was actually around this time. This might actually be the anniversary of it. Nah, it's not, but it's close. And I went back and forth to this store. I'm not gonna name any names, but it rhymes with Schmame Spop. Because they kept giving me broken consoles.
With what?
Schmame Spop.
I don't know what that means. Is that a Hanson song?
No. I made about 3 runs, and I was walking back and forth, so it was about 1 Las Vegas block. Back and forth, each time I'd get home and find out that this fucking console did not work. So, on my 3rd trip, I says to the guy, you got anything to incentivize me to continue going on with this charade? To which he says, I have this here pre-order pin for the Monster Hunter game. And my first trip to the store, I had run into this gentleman, well, these 2 gentlemen, one of which who was there to buy the recently released Monster Hunter game. So I call this guy up, and I say, hey, GameStop just, shit, name dropped. We're getting sued. They just gave me this pen, and I know that this pen is merchandise for the game that you just bought. Would you like it? I have no interest in it. He said, sure, come over. I come over, and a friendship was born.
Oh, lovely. Oh, Melania. Oh, Melania.
That's what I should have named my little kitty. Kitty friend in the game. Huge. So yeah, Tech Talk. Capcom's coming up. That's pretty interesting. They haven't been relevant in years. Actually, no, they did a pretty successful release of Resident Evil 7 as well.
They did Resident Evil 2?
Yeah, they did Resident Evil, Mega Man, Street Fighter.
Mega Man 2 right now.
Can't remember what else they did. Were they Metal Gear or were they not? No, they weren't Metal Gear. That's Square.
You know what? All you need to say is that they did Street Fighter 2.
Yes, they did They did all the Street Fighter games.
So
except for like the off. See, but this Monster Hunter game outsold Street Fighter.
I don't know about that.
And it's way harder, that's for sure. Oh, it did. It's their fastest selling game in history. They've never sold games
Monster
faster.
Hunter, that seems like an app that a 3-year-old would play.
Monster Hunter is some straight up hardcore Japanese weeaboo gaming that has finally hit the mainstream.
Okay.
It is very challenging and very fun. So my review of it is 4 out of 5 stars. I'll change it to 5 out of 5 when they fix the online matchmaking.
Boom. Well, we already did Tech Talk with Elon Musk and all that. But
was that a Tech Talk? I thought that was more politics.
That's it's like a Venn diagram.
Venn diagrams look like butts.
So does mine.
Well,
never mind.
This has been an enthralling and enthusiastic and energizing and slightly entropic episode.
79 Reboot. Kenny
version 2
might want to have a live chat.
Electric Boogaloo.
Kenny might be down in a little bit.
Really?
For a shorty. Yeah.
For a shorty.
We have a lot to talk about.
Where?
He's not as like crazy on the left as, I don't know if you have him as a friend on Facebook, but we get into these arguments and see, here's the problem.
No,
with
I might have Kenny as a friend, but I've yes. There is a distinct lag. So you start talking after I've already started talking because I don't hear you start talking till about 4 seconds after you do.
Okay.
Leave me alone.
No, well, don't act like you don't have a tendency to do the damn thing, which
I do.
I love you for because you're passionate, and I love that about you, and it's all good.
And you hate it because it sucks.
Well, we got people that want to talk, you know, and I'm one of them.
You don't deserve
Kenny,
to talk.
we might do another one. Me and Kenny tend to disagree on a lot of stuff, but
I'm aware.
Here's the problem with the social media climate that we have now is that me and Kenny seem like we are on drastic opposite sides of the spectrum if you were to see like a chat conversation between me and him. But when we have a face-to-face and, you know, childhood friend, it tends to go a little more like we're not this far apart, we're like this far apart, you know?
That's because a lot is lost in text, and that is the exact purpose of this show, if I recall correctly. That's why Mercury's cast started.
Thank you, buddy, for mentioning that. And we need more of this. We need more of discussion. We need less of fucking, oh god, especially those viral videos that have like a misleading headline and none of it's true. And it's like, this guy called this dude an N-word. And you just see a black person punching a white person. It's like, okay, first of all, we didn't see any evidence of the N-word. And then not only that, like I could go back to this picture that I posted the other day of when they said, oh, this is Melania Trump bending over.
That was an Italian lawmaker, wasn't it?
It was an Italian lawmaker, and it was a Photoshop. So you just struck out, and then people just share the shit willingly, and they get mad. And it's so, you know, it's like I should be better than to be getting upset over this and going through dumb people's Facebook posts. And like I spend a lot of time on Facebook vetting, and when I see something, it's not that I'm like, oh, that's fake news, I gotta find the fucking, no, it's like, no, okay, this seems weird, so let's look into it a little bit. Okay. Yeah. And that's how I approach things. Well, I'm like, that seems a little funny.
I just want to say Kenny's good people, and I think he and I are going to get together out in Vegas.
Oh, you should. He is good people. I've known him since I was a wee lad. Since I was knee-high to a chicken. Yeah,
he had mentioned in Mercury's chat that he'd be willing to meet up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
when are you going to be up there?
I will be in Vegas from the 28th to the 3rd. 28th of February to the 3rd of March.
Please keep reminding me. I got a fucking Firefly attention span.
It's about 16 days away now.
Okay.
So if any of our lovely fans would like to stalk me while I'm out there, leave it in the comment section below.
Word. I guess we can cut this one off now.
This has been another
episode of Mercury's Cast. Oh, I want to bring back the catchphrase. Excuse me, the catchphrase. Step your game up. That used to be our thing when me and Kenny were dating on the show
back in the day.
You want to say it?
Kinky. Step up your game.
No. It's step your game up.
Oh.
Step up your no. On a
step game, you're up.
Oh no! It's step your game up. You got to do it the right way. Up your
game, your step.
Step your game up, folks.